For several months, as many as 2 million Cambodians tuned in to a weekly court drama on TV.
Hello and welcome to the 22nd program in our series, Doik on Trial.
This is no fictional series. The genocide being described killed almost 2 million in the 1970s. However, most viewers know little about what is now distant history. 2/3 of today's Cambodians weren't even born when the Khmer Rouge were in power. And few Cambodians know much about the international tribunal that is trying a handful of prominent survivors of the Khmer Rouge regime for their role in the killings. The TV series is intended to change that.
Now we're going to see a selection of evidence given to the court about some of the crimes with which Doik has been charged.
Viewers should be aware that some, but not all of the stories told here were denied by Doik.
The first to stand trial was Kang Guk Yav, better known as Comrade Doik, now in his late 60s.
We treated them as if they were already dead. I allowed 4 torture methods.
The trial itself is taking place just outside Phnom Penh. The capital is also the site of the prison Doik commanded, where at least 14,000 men, women, and children were photographed and documented in a macabre administrative process, then tortured and killed. Van Nath was one of only 7 people who came out alive. Today he paints and sells pictures of the painful memories. He talked about his imprisonment with Eric Stover, a human rights scholar and expert who's studying the impact of international courts on societies and individuals.
And how long were you held before you were asked to come and draw the portraits?
1 month and 4 days.
Van Nath's life was spared so he could paint portraits of Pol Pot, the Khmer Rouge leader who went into hiding and died in 1998.
In that 6 months, about 67 pictures of Pol Pot.
Testifying at the trial left him angry at being cross-examined and at seeing how well the defendant seemed to be treated.
It was just like a shock when I go there to the court and see him. When I tell them the truth, they doubt me, ask me a lot of questions. I don't feel the trust when I tell them, and that makes me feel bad. It seems like the accused person has more rights than the civil parties do, and I'm really not satisfied with that.
Many also aren't satisfied with the slow pace of justice. It was delayed for years by Cold War politics and the reluctance of the Cambodian government, which still has former members of the Khmer Rouge in it. Stover says the tricky negotiations limited the scope of the court, which was set up with 2 international and 3 Cambodian justices.
The Cambodian government itself was not that in favor of this court. Even the negotiations to create it took a long period of time. We say that with evidence, over time, evidence loses its value. You're 30 years later, people's memories have been, people forgotten, people have died. So going after those most responsible is really all you're going to get at this point.
Justice delayed may be justice denied for many victims, but Chum Sirath, who started a group called the Victims Association, says despite the limited number of defendants, the court sends an important message.
If we can have a bigger number, more people, it would be better. But if not, it's better than nothing. When you commit a crime, there will be people who try to put you, to take you into account. This is one of the lesson that young generation can learn.
Eric Stover says the court itself has had to learn how to teach some of those lessons.
I don't think any court should be expected to be a social engineering institution. They're just not designed to do that. But what we can expect from them is that they should have vigorous programs that try to go out into the population and describe what they're doing, why they're doing it, and what their limitations are.
He says after a slow start, the court did launch outreach programs. Twice a week, buses have brought in thousands of Cambodians on field trips. I asked this group of visitors how many had ever heard of the court before coming here. The international community wanted the word spread even further. That's why the British government and the US-based East-West Center sponsored the television series.
Do you think the trial has gone well? The process has been pretty impressive. I've supported it because I was one of the victims. I was imprisoned under the regime.
Matthew Robinson was hired to produce the court series.
We had to devise a language and to base our understanding of what was going on in the court that would be intelligible to people whose basic knowledge of legal proceedings, indeed court proceedings, is minimal indeed.
The program has also urged viewers to engage in more dialogue about the trial and about the genocide.
Thanks to everyone here for this discussion of Duic's trial.
We hope that this will encourage you at home to talk together about this topic, so vital to Cambodia's future well-being and progress.
Those conversations aren't easy, says Robinson.
I mean, anybody from 25 down are not so much skeptical about it, but they lack knowledge. And parents seem to be reluctant, maybe even embarrassed, to talk about what happened to them.
Yuk Chang, who survived the Khmer Rouge killing fields, wants to make sure young people get the knowledge they need, even if their parents won't talk about it.
This is the textbook for grade 9 and 12. And now
He is director of the Cambodia Documentation Center, which has published a textbook that is now in the hands of 1 million Cambodian students.
start from the creation of the Khmer Rouge movement all the way to the fall of the Khmer Rouge in 1979.
Most kids growing up in this country have never learned about it.
They never learned about this, but they heard about this. Right now, for the first time in 30 years, from grade 9 to 12, also the foundation year of every single university allowed to study the Khmer Rouge history.
The verdict and sentencing are expected in early June, 6 months after final arguments ended and 2 years after the trial began. Yuk Chang hopes it will help the country move on.
The court helped to put the past behind, and that give us the direction on where we turn next to the future. And the court put the past into perspective so that we can learn from it.
Survivors like Van Nath hope it brings justice.
The verdict should be balancing what Duic has done, how many people he killed, and how many he caused suffering. For me, I can't forgive.
Eric Stover says the court by example can be an important building block for the future of this country, still recovering from years of war and genocide.
People will have basic needs and need to be attended to, but if you're going to have real progress, you also put in the infrastructure for democracy, infrastructure for the rule of law, infrastructure that will support human rights, because without that, you will always be in an uphill battle.
The tribunal's next case will be a joint trial for 4 elderly defendants. It's expected to start in 2012.